Welcome everyone to Press TV's news review program, where we get in depth in one of the day's top stories. And now in review, global stock markets tumble after several central banks raise interest rates to bring soaring inflation under control as recession fears grow. Wall Street's three major indices all recorded losses for fourth consecutive day. Friday, they fell up to 1.8%. It came after the Federal Reserve announced yet another hike in interest rates. European central banks, including in the UK, have followed suit. Markets in the Eurozone were also over 2% in the red on Friday. That was amid drops in Asian markets for a third consecutive day. And now joining us for the program is Paul Sheldon, Foote Professor Emeritus at Irvine, California, and Tony Gosling, investigative journalist, joining us from Bristol. Gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you both to the program. Now, Professor Foote, Doctor, the Fed and other central banks from Europe to Asia are aggressively hiking interest rates to try to undercut inflation. And of course, we know this is to perhaps purposely choke off or possibly cool off the economy, so possibly less purchasing, deflates inflationary pressures. But supposedly they also threaten a recession if they rise too far or too quickly. Help us understand, Professor, how this fine line governments worldwide today have to tread.
Well, as you noted, it is a global problem. It's a game of I want to export my inflation to other countries, and other countries say, no, we don't want to import your inflation. No, thank you. So the fact that the Federal Reserve is hiking rates forces many other central banks to do the same, because they don't want the inflation to be exported to their countries either. And unfortunately, America is guilty of causing this mess. They have been since 2008. Back in 2007, our central bank, the Federal Reserve, had a balance sheet of less than $1 trillion. Today, it's nearly $9 trillion. Totally outrageous increase. And that was caused by the financial crisis of 2008, because we had dishonest financial institutions selling packages of mortgages to trusting investors around the world. And that nearly brought down our economy, and it didn't help a lot of other investors around the world. Then we had the COVID mess with the Democrats closing down the country and sending people checks and saying, stay home, don't do anything. It's just revealed that there have been billions of dollars of fraudulent claims where people actually submitted applications for reimbursement from several different states. So unfortunately, the biggest cause of the mess in the world comes right from the United States and the dishonest people that we elect.
Thank you, Professor. And Tony, welcome to the program there. Now, Tony, we know European stocks in your neck of the woods are also crashing after data suggested, according to this AP article, business had its worst monthly contraction since the start of 2021. And this new plan that London wants to cut taxes sent UK yields soaring, Tony, because according to this article, it could force central bank to raise interest rates even more sharply. You may just have to tighten your seatbelt there in the UK as well. Tony, help us figure out how you guys are feeling the pinch over there.
Well, look, Sheldon's quite rightly saying that this is a global problem, particularly in the West, and it's not been helped by the sanctions that we have put on Russia, and that has not helped at all. But today, these shockwaves, I think, have been sent around the world specifically by a man called Kwasi Kwarteng. He's the new Chancellor of the Exchequer here in Britain, and his mini budget. You have to understand what he's been trying to do here. His philosophy, and Liz Truss, the new Prime Minister's philosophy, is to give tax cuts to the super rich in the hope that that will help increase the productivity of the economy. And I think that that's just not going to happen. What they need to do is to actually just get people spending money. Yeah, that's what gets the economy moving. And if you give extra money to the super rich, they don't spend it. What they tend to do is just invest it in offshore tax havens where it can't be taxed. And so this is really the opposite of what they needed to be doing. I don't think we're even necessarily looking at a recession. I think we could be heading into a slump, and it could even be that the British are dragging the Western world down into that slump. I mean, if you look at who is Kwasi Kwarteng, our new Chancellor, he's part of this group called Le Cercle, which is a far-right think tank which has been going since before the Second World War. After the Second World War, it was populated by, it's also known as the Pinay Circle. It was populated with individuals from the old Pétainist government, that's the Nazi occupation government of France. And he was also working at JP Morgan too. So it's not as if he doesn't understand what he's doing. I think what's happening here is that they're playing with the world economy, and the City of London and the Wall Street insiders are gambling. And what they will be gambling is that as the economy starts to slump or even crash, that they can buy up many of these businesses, small family businesses, medium-sized businesses at next to nothing, and make an absolute fortune at this. So I think maybe that's what's going on in Britain with this most far right. I don't think Liz Truss is going to last very long if she carries on like this, because these policies just simply don't make any sense. We've seen pictures of Kwarteng and Truss touring places like robotized factories. They seem to think that robotics is the future. Well, it's great for the shareholders, but it's leaving thousands and thousands of people on the dole with no income and individuals. So they care far more for the shareholders, this new right-wing, far-right crew, I would call them, than they do for ordinary citizens in this country.
And Dr. Foote, it's funny that Tony should mention that usually in a thriving economy, you want to see people spending more and businesses spending more. Why is it now with all these rate hikes and with by design? Why are they designed to do exactly the opposite right now and choke the economy? Are they afraid, are governments worldwide afraid that there is for sure a looming recession on the horizon where they want to slow down the economy?
Yes, at least in the United States, they are very afraid of that. And we have reasons such as rents have been going up. They keep talking about gasoline prices going down recently, but big deal. What about rents? What about jobs? We have plenty of jobs at the moment. That may not last. But unfortunately, the salary increases that keep being quoted are not compared with the inflation. So the real wages aren't necessarily going up. And if the real wages aren't going up, that means that the workers are going to be concerned about losing their jobs. And if they're keeping their jobs, they're going to be concerned about saving their money for fear that there won't be enough money in the near future if there's a recession.
And Tony, back to your point, and Dr. Foote's point, you mentioned how big businesses and conglomerates come in at a time like this and sweep up whatever the little guy owns. And it's funny because that's exactly what happened in 2008. A lot of people got foreclosed, and the bank ended up with those properties at this end. But they didn't go belly up, did they? They got huge bailouts from the government where they doubled up. They got billions of dollars in bailouts, and they ended up with people's properties.
Yeah, I mean, so the side effects of the deliberate sanctions, so-called sanctions on Russia, which are kind of masochistic, really, completely unnecessary, but they are hurting the population of Britain and Europe and the United States far more than they're hurting Russia. So this is a complete policy, mistake. And combined with all of the money spent on COVID, and now the money being given to the energy companies, and the fact that we're not taxing people with lots and lots of money who wouldn't even notice if, say £1 million was taken from them in tax. They've got so many millions or billions that they wouldn't even notice missing $1 million, but they're not going to be taxed anyway. So what they're doing is they are creating a massive acceleration here in the UK in public debt. So this is, the government debt. And that is, what is it? It's a debt trap. So once you're in the debt trap, the people who you owe the debt to start dictating the terms. And we are actually moving towards a situation, I think, increasingly, where these the banks that they owe this debt to and the financial institutions are going to start dictating policy. And it looks to me as if this, I mean, for example, we've just had the bankers' bonuses caps taken off. So bankers can pay themselves billions in bonuses now if they wish to. This is the result of, this is what we're seeing. As the government is forcing, is going further and further into debt, the country's going into debt, so that those they owe the debts to are starting to dictate policy. They're saying, right, we're going to have this, we're going to have that. Of course, they also spend a lot of money financing the political parties too. But what we've got really, I think, is, that if London tanks, this is going to spread around the world. London is such an important financial centre. And so we've got a small elite with access to policy. We don't really have any democracy left whatsoever. I mean, we've just had, by the way, our opposition Labour Party on Al Jazeera at the moment in English is doing a series of how the Israel lobby has basically made it impossible for Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party to win the 2017 and 2019 elections. So we've got interference in our elections. So we don't have very much democracy left. These incredibly wealthy elites are in charge. And it's nice to see Ebrahim Raisi at the UN, your president today, talking about spiritual justice, because I think there is a spiritual aspect to all of this. What's going on is actually evil. It's greed. And some point in the future, there will be a spiritual reset where people will get this economic justice back. But quite how that happens, I'm afraid, is anyone's guess.
Gentlemen, time has gotten the better of us. I want to thank you both for joining us on the program. Professor Paul Sheldon Foote there, joining us from Irvine, California, and Tony Gosling joining us out of Bristol in the UK. And viewers, that's a wrap for the segment of your Press TV's News Review program. Thank you for tuning in, and goodbye for now.